The massive war room aboard the Coalition flagship Harmony's Edge hummed with the low buzz of dozens of different alien technologies working together. Holographic displays cast blue and red light across the faces of beings from across the galaxy, each one showing the same terrible truth: they were losing. Admiral Kethfer stood at the center of it all, his four muscular arms crossed as he stared at the tactical display. The Altarian's skin had turned a deep purple color, which everyone in the room knew meant he was angry, very angry. 203 years, he said, his voice coming out as a low growl that the universal translator turned into words the other species could understand. We have been fighting this war for 203 years, and we are no better off than when we started. Around the circular table, representatives from dozens of worlds nodded their heads, clicked their claws, or made whatever gesture their species used to show agreement. The war against the Zephyrian Empire had gone on so long that some of the younger officers had never known peace. Commander Rill from the Cetacean Collective made a series of rapid clicking sounds. Her people lived in the oceans of their world and spoke through sonar, but the translator made her words clear to everyone. The Zephyrian fleets keep growing. Every day, their automated ships build more automated ships. We destroy 10 of theirs, and they build 20 more. I know exactly what our reports say. Kethfer slammed one of his fists down on the control panel, making the hologram flicker. The display showed red dots spreading across star map after star map. Each red dot was a Zephyrian fleet. Each blue dot was a coalition world under attack. The math was simple and horrible. The coalition was made up of over 300 different species, each bringing their best technology and warriors to the fight. But the Zephyrians had something better than courage or advanced weapons. They had machines that never got tired, never got scared, and never stopped building more machines. In the back corner of the room, Intelligence Officer Morden had been quiet during the entire meeting. His species, the tentacled ones, were known for thinking long and hard before speaking. When he finally raised one of his 12 tentacles, the room went silent. Admiral Morden said, his voice carrying the weight of someone about to share a dangerous secret. There is one option we have not tried. Every eye, sensor, and attention-focusing organ in the room turned toward him. The crystalline shardfolk made tiny tinkling sounds as they shifted. The gaseous nebula dancers swirled in their containment suits. Even the massive rock fathers, who were basically living mountains, turned their boulder-like heads to listen. Go on, Kethfer said. Morden's tentacles moved across his computer interface, calling up classified files that most beings in the room had never seen. There is a world in Sector 7G. The local star is called Sol. The third planet is called Earth, the primitive world. Commander Uriel clicked in what sounded like surprise. Morden, those beings can barely travel to their own moon. They still use explosions to push their ships through space. Yes, Morden agreed. They are primitive. They do not have faster-than-light travel. They do not have energy shields. They do not even have a unified world government. He paused, letting this sink in. But they have something we lost long ago. The room was so quiet that the only sound was the soft hum of the ship's engines. They fight, Morden continued, not just against outside enemies, but against each other, constantly. They have had thousands of wars on their single world. They fight over resources, over ideas, over territory no bigger than a city. They fight with weapons, with words, with economics. They never stop. Admiral Kethfer's 4 eyes blinked one after another, which was how his people showed confusion. How does that help us? We need warriors who can defeat the Zephyrian Empire, not savages who fight each other. Admiral, with respect, we have been fighting the Zephyrians the same way for over 2 centuries. Every strategy we try, they have a counter-strategy ready. Every new weapon we build, they build defenses against it. We have become predictable. Morden brought up more data on his screen. The humans, that is what they call themselves, they do not fight predictably. In their wars, smaller forces defeat larger ones. Weaker armies beat stronger ones. They use tactics that make no logical sense, and yet they work. Impossible, said General Vorth, a rock father whose voice sounded like grinding stone. Warfare follows rules, logic, mathematics. Does it? Morden asked. Because our logical mathematical approach has led to 2 centuries of stalemate. The debate that followed was fierce. Some called the idea desperate. Others called it insane. The humans were so primitive that they still killed each other with metal projectiles. How could such beings help defeat an empire that spanned half the galaxy? But as the arguments went on, one fact remained unchanged. Nothing else had worked. The coalition was slowly losing, and in another 100 years, the Zephyrian Empire would control every world in the galaxy. Finally, Admiral Kethfer made his decision. Contact Earth, he said. Let us see what these humans can do. None of them could have guessed that within days, the longest war in galactic history would be over. Captain Jamin Park was having what he thought would be a normal day. His small patrol ship Tygok was floating near an asteroid field, watching the mining robots collect metals and rare materials. It was boring work, but someone had to make sure the automated systems kept working properly. Then space broke. That was the only way Park could describe what he saw. One moment there was empty black space, dotted with stars, and the next moment reality seemed to fold in on itself like someone crumpling paper. When the folding stopped, something impossible hung in front of his ship. It looked like a crystal mountain that someone had taught to fly. The alien vessel was easily the size of a small moon, its surface covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Lights pulsed along its edges in colors that Park was pretty sure didn't exist in any human language. Park stared for a full minute before remembering he should probably report this. Control tower. This is Captain Park, he said into his radio, proud that his voice only shook a little. I think we're going to need a bigger manual. 3 days later. Every important person on Earth was crammed into the United Nations building in New York. They had converted the main assembly hall as quickly as possible, but it still looked like humans trying to host a dinner party for gods. President Kim Hyjin stood at the podium, looking up at Admiral Kethfer of the Altarian Republic. The alien was nearly 3 meters tall, with blue-gray skin and 4 powerful arms. When he gestured at the holographic star maps floating above the assembly, entire galaxies spun slowly in the air. Your species stands at an important moment in history, Kethver said. His words came through a small device that turned his alien language into perfect Korean, English, and dozens of other human languages. We do not come as invaders. We come asking for help to end a war that has lasted for more than 200 years. Defense Minister Lee Dae-ho raised his hand like a student in school. Admiral, with all respect, we can barely get to our own moon without something going wrong. How could we possibly help in a war between star empires? Several of the alien delegates made sounds that might have been laughter, but not the kind that meant something was funny. More like the kind that meant someone had just suggested something ridiculous. But then Morden, the squid-like intelligence officer, spoke up. His 12 tentacles moved in what humans would later learn was the equivalent of raising an eyebrow. Minister Lee, may I ask you something? How many wars has your species fought in the past 100 years? Lee looked around at his fellow ministers and military officers. Well, that's hard to say exactly. Hundreds, certainly. Maybe thousands, if you count every small conflict and civil war. And how many wars has the coalition fought in that same time? Just ... this one, I suppose. Exactly. Right? Morden's tentacles wiggled and what humans would learn meant he was pleased. We have spent 2 centuries becoming very good at fighting the Zephyrian Empire. But you have spent thousands of years becoming very good at fighting. Within hours of that meeting, human military experts were sitting in rooms filled with alien technology, studying battle records that spanned centuries. The data was overwhelming, Star charts showing fleet movements across dozens of galaxies, casualty reports with numbers so large they seemed meaningless, tactical analyses written by the greatest military minds of hundreds of different species. Colonel Han Yujin, from the Strategic Planning Division, found herself staring at a holographic display showing Zephyrian attack patterns. She had been studying warfare her entire career, and something about what she was seeing bothered her. "They're not trying to win," she said to Major Choi Minho, who was sitting next to her trying to understand alien weapon specifications. "What do you mean?" Minho asked. Han Yujin pointed at the display, highlighting several star systems. "Look at how they advance. Every movement is perfectly planned. Every attack follows mathematical models. Every retreat is calculated for minimum losses." She shook her head. "But that's not how you win wars. That's how you avoid losing them. There's a difference." "Oh, there's a huge difference." Han Yujin pulled up more data, showing the Zephyrian expansion over the past 50 years. "See how symmetrical everything is? They advance at the same rate in all directions. They consolidate their gains before moving forward. They never take risks." "That sounds smart to me." "It is smart. It's perfectly logical. But wars aren't won by logic, Minho. They're won by doing things your enemy doesn't expect. And this enemy clearly expects everyone to be as logical as they are." All around the facility, human officers were reaching similar conclusions. Where the alien coalition saw impenetrable defenses, humans saw rigid systems that couldn't adapt. Where the coalition saw superior technology, humans saw overcomplicated solutions to simple problems. The Zephyrians had built a perfect war machine, and that was exactly their weakness. General Park Sung-woo had been chosen to represent Earth in all military matters with the coalition. He was a quiet man who preferred to listen rather than talk. But when he finally spoke to the Coalition War Council, his words were simple and direct. "Give us 3 hours, he said calmly. "Just 3 hours, and we'll end your war." The room erupted in chaos. Some aliens chittered angrily. Others made honking sounds of disbelief. A few simply stared at the humans like they had gone insane. But Admiral Kethfer raised one of his forehands for silence. "General Park," he said carefully, "are you serious?" "Completely serious, Admiral. 3 hours." The old NASA building in Seoul had been transformed overnight into something that looked like a mix between a computer lab and a war room. Cables snaked across the floors, connecting human computers to alien technology that hummed with strange energies. The air buzzed with the sound of dozens of machines working at maximum capacity. Dr. Song Myung sat hunched over her workstation, her eyes red from staring at screens for the past 18 hours straight. As Korea's top expert in quantum computing, she had been pulled from her university job and thrown into the most important project in human history. Lines of alien code scrolled down her monitor faster than any human should be able to read. But somehow she was keeping up. "It's beautiful," she whispered to Lieutenant Commander Yoon Tae-hyun, who was standing behind her chair. "Look at this. Their entire empire runs on one giant computer system. Every spaceship, every space station, every robot factory, all connected to the same network." Yoon leaned closer to look at the screen. He was Special Forces, trained in psychological warfare and breaking enemy communications. To him, the alien code looked like an opportunity. "That sounds incredibly efficient," he said. "It is," Song agreed, her fingers dancing across the keyboard as she translated more of the Zephyrian programming language. "It's the most elegant computer network I've ever seen. Everything works together perfectly. No waste, no errors, no conflicts between different systems. And that makes it the most vulnerable system you've ever seen," Yoon said with a grim smile. Song stopped typing and looked up at him. "What do you mean? Think about it. If everything is connected to everything else, then a problem in one place becomes a problem everywhere." Yoon pointed at the screen, showing the network map of the Zephyrian Empire. They've built a perfect system. But perfect systems are fragile. They can't handle anything unexpected. Song's eyes widened as she understood what he was suggesting. If we can introduce chaos into their network, ... Their greatest strength becomes their greatest weakness, Yoon finished. But we'll need more than just computer attacks to make this work. Across the facility, Colonel Shin Jae-wook was standing in front of a room full of human and alien officers. The aliens looked confused, while the humans looked excited. On the wall behind him, a large screen showed intercepted Zephyrian communications, messages between their commanders, status reports from their fleets, and routine administrative data. The Zephyrians are not just another empire, Shin explained, pointing at the messages on the screen. They are a species that has achieved something remarkable, perfect unity. Every individual thinks the same way, acts the same way, responds to problems the same way. One of the coalition officers, a crystalline being whose voice sounded like wind chimes, spoke up. How is that a weakness? Unity is strength. Unity can be strength, Shin agreed. But it can also be a weakness if your enemy knows how to exploit it. He changed the display to show psychological profiles that human analysts had created. The Zephyrians have eliminated chaos from their society. They have no crime, no disagreements, no unexpected behavior. Everything is planned and coordinated. That sounds wonderful, the alien officer said. It does, Shin nodded. But it also means they have no experience dealing with chaos. Their greatest fear is not death or defeat, it's disorder. They literally do not know how to handle situations that don't follow their plans. He gestured to Commander Lim Bo-young, who was sitting at a computer terminal in the corner of the room. She had been Korea's top expert in information warfare. Before being recruited for this project, Bo-young, show them what we've prepared. Lim's fingers moved across her keyboard, and the main display filled with what looked like normal Zephyrian military communications. But as everyone watched, the messages began to change. These are fake orders designed to look like they're coming from Zephyrian High Command, Lim explained. But each message contradicts the others. Fleet Commander A is told to attack System X. Fleet Commander B is told to defend System X. Fleet Commander C is told that System X has already fallen and should be abandoned. The room was quiet as everyone absorbed what they were seeing. We've also created fake emergency signals, Lim continued, bringing up more examples. Reports of massive coalition attacks that aren't really happening. Distress calls from colonies that are perfectly safe. Technical failures in critical systems that are actually working fine. Admiral Kesfar, who had been watching silently, finally spoke. This is ... deception warfare. More than that, Shin replied. This is chaos warfare. We're not just lying to them, we're breaking their ability to tell truth from lies. When they can't trust their own communication system, their perfect coordination falls apart. Dr. Song looked up from her computer. The virus is ready, she announced. It's designed to spread through their network and randomly generate false data. Not enough to crash their systems, but enough to make them question everything they're seeing, and the psychological component. Colonel Shin asked. Commander Lim nodded, ready to transmit. We have thousands of fake messages prepared, all designed to create maximum confusion and panic. General Park Sung-woo, who had been coordinating the overall operation, stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, he said quietly, we're about to fight a war unlike any that has ever been fought before. We're not going to defeat the Zephyrian Empire by destroying their ships or conquering their worlds. He looked around the room at the mix of human and alien faces. We're going to defeat them by teaching them something they've never experienced before, what it feels like when everything you trust turns against you. Captain No Jinsu gripped the arms of his command chair as his ship Sejong dropped out of hyperspace. The modified coalition cruiser shuddered slightly as it transitioned from faster-than-light travel back to normal space. Through the main view screen, he could see the edge of Zephyrian territory, a region of space that no coalition ship had entered in over 50 years. Around his vessel, dozens of other ships appeared as they completed their jumps. Each one was a coalition warship, but now they were all under human command. The alien crews had volunteered to follow human tactical leadership, something that would have been unthinkable just weeks ago. Cyber team, report, No commanded, his voice steady, despite the historic nature of what they were about to attempt. Dr. Song here, Captain, came the reply from the communications officer. Quantum viruses are loaded and ready to deploy. We're going to use their own communication networks to spread our attack. They'll never see us coming. No nodded. The plan was audacious beyond belief. Instead of fighting the Zephyrian Empire with guns and missiles, they were going to fight them with confusion and chaos. On the bridge of the Coalition flagship, Admiral Kethver stood behind the tactical stations where human officers were now coordinating the attack. As a four-armed Altarian, he was used to being in command, but today, he was an observer. The humans had asked for complete tactical control, and despite every instinct telling him this was insane, he had agreed. Commander Park Hyenju sat at the main communications console, her hands moving across controls that connected to every ship in the fleet. She had been a communications specialist in the Korean military before being recruited for this operation. Now she was about to conduct the opening movement of the strangest battle in galactic history. All ships report ready, she announced. Psychological operations commence in 3.2.1. Transmitting across thousands of light years of space. The Zephyrian Empire's communication networks suddenly came alive with activity, but this wasn't normal military traffic. Emergency signals began broadcasting from star systems where nothing was wrong. Distress calls flooded in from colonies that were perfectly safe. Most importantly, contradictory orders began appearing. In the command structure, Fleet Commander Zeph Alpha 7 received an urgent message, directing him to immediately abandon his patrol sector and reinforce the defenses around the core worlds. At the same moment, Fleet Commander Zephel Fate received orders to move his ships to the exact same sector that Zephel Fesivin was being told to abandon. Both orders appeared to come from Supreme Command with the highest priority authentication codes. Within minutes, similar contradictions were spreading throughout the Zephorian military. Commanders who had never questioned an order in their lives suddenly found themselves receiving instructions that made no sense. Some were told to attack their own allies. Others were ordered to defend systems that had supposedly already fallen to coalition forces. The effect was immediate and devastating in ways the coalition had never imagined. Possible Dr. Song watched from her station aboard the Sejong as her computer viruses spread through the Zephyrian network. The viruses weren't designed to destroy anything that would have been too obvious. Instead, they subtly altered data as it moved through the system. A report of 100 enemy ships became a report of 1,000 enemy ships. Supply levels that showed green for adequate became red for critical shortage. Repair schedules were randomly changed, making it appear that critical systems were failing across the Empire. It's working beyond our best projections, Song reported to Captain No. Their network is amplifying our false signals automatically. The more they try to verify information, the more false information they create. On the main tactical display, they could see the results. Zephyrian fleets that had maintained perfect formations for decades were beginning to break apart. Some ships were moving to respond to fake emergencies. Others were holding position while waiting for clarification of contradictory orders. The perfect coordination that had made the Zephyrian Empire invincible was falling apart. Commander Lim Boya monitored the psychological warfare component from her station. Her screens showed intercepted Zephyrian communications, and what she was reading amazed her. The aliens were panicking. "Captain, you need to hear this," she called out. She played an intercepted transmission from a Zephyrian fleet commander. The alien's voice, translated by their computers, was filled with something that sounded like fear. Command, this is Fleet 77-9. We have received 17 different sets of orders in the past 10 minutes. Our sensors show coalition fleets approaching from 6 different directions, but we cannot confirm any visual contact. Request immediate clarification of tactical situation. The response that came back was even more telling. Fleet, we are experiencing similar communication difficulties. Hold position until further orders. They don't know what's happening to them, Lim reported with amazement. They're starting to doubt their own sensors, their own command structure, everything. Admiral Kethfer watched the tactical displays with growing astonishment. Red markers, representing Zephyrian fleets, were moving in apparently random directions. Some were clustering together defensively. Others were spreading out, as if preparing for attacks that weren't coming. The mathematical precision that had characterized Zephyrian military operations for 2 centuries was dissolving into chaos. How long until they adapt to our tactics? He asked Commander Park. Park looked up from her console with a slight smile. Admiral, that's the beauty of this approach. There's nothing for them to adapt to. We're not using any new technology or weapons. We're just making them fight themselves. The first hour of the 3-hour war was nearly over, and the Zephyrian Empire was already beginning to collapse from within. 3 months had passed since the impossible happened. 3 months since humanity ended a war that had lasted longer than some civilizations had existed. Now President Kim Hae-jin stood in the most important room in the galaxy, facing beings from hundreds of different worlds, all trying to understand how it had been possible. The Galactic Coalition Assembly was enormous. The chamber was built like a giant bowl, with thousands of seats arranged in circles that rose up toward a domed ceiling. Each seat was designed for a different type of alien, some filled with water for aquatic species, others containing special gases for beings who couldn't breathe normal air. The translation systems worked overtime, converting Kim Hae-jin's words into sounds, colors, chemical signals, and other forms of communication that humans were still learning about. Everyone keeps asking us the same question, President Kim began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. How did humanity win so quickly? How did we end a war in 3 hours that had been going on for over 200 years? She paused, looking around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. Some had eyes like humans, others had sensors that detected heat or electromagnetic fields. A few didn't have anything that humans would recognize as a face at all. The answer is both simple and complicated, she continued. We didn't win because we were stronger than the We didn't win because we were smarter or because we had better technology. We won because we were different. Behind her, a massive holographic display showed the final moments of the war. Zephyrian fleets scattered across dozens of star systems, their perfect formations breaking apart as confusion spread through their ranks like a virus. Admiral Kethfer rose from his seat in the front row. The four-armed Altarian had become Earth's strongest supporter in the coalition, something that would have seemed impossible just months ago. The humans brought something to our war that we had forgotten existed, he said, his deep voice carrying easily through the chamber. For thousands of years, we coalition species have fought wars according to rules. We plan our attacks, we calculate our defenses, we predict what our enemies will do based on what they have done before. He gestured toward the human delegation. But humans don't follow those rules. They are unpredictable in ways we had forgotten were possible. Dr. Song Myung stood up next. She had been a university professor just months ago, and now she was the director of something called the Galactic Cyber Defense Initiative, a job that hadn't existed before. Humans showed everyone how vulnerable their computer systems really were. The Zephyrian Empire was perfect, she explained, calling up technical diagrams that showed the alien network architecture. Every system worked exactly as designed. Every process followed logical rules. Every decision was based on mathematical calculations. The diagrams shifted, showing how the human virus had spread through the Zephyrian networks. But perfect systems have a weakness that imperfect systems don't have, Song continued. They can't handle chaos. They're not designed to deal with random, unpredictable events. When we introduced chaos into their perfect system, it couldn't adapt. It just ... broke. General Park Seung-woo was the next to speak. He had been appointed as the coalition's first human strategic defense coordinator, making him one of the most powerful military officers in the galaxy. For 2 centuries, both sides fought the same war, he said simply. The coalition would attack, the Zephyrians would defend. The Zephyrians would attack, the coalition would defend. Every strategy had been tried. Every tactic had been countered. Both sides knew exactly what to expect from each other. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many different species as possible. We won because we fought a completely different war. We didn't try to destroy their ships or conquer their worlds. We attacked something they didn't even know could be attacked, their certainty. But it was Colonel Shin Jae-wook who provided the explanation that would be remembered by military historians for centuries to come. The Zephyrians spent 200 years studying their enemy, he said, standing slowly. They knew everything about coalition tactics, coalition technology, coalition psychology. They had built perfect defenses against everything you could throw at them. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the mechanical humming of life support systems seemed to quiet down. But they had never studied us, Shin continued. They couldn't defend against tactics they had never seen, strategies they couldn't predict, attacks that came from minds that worked in ways they couldn't imagine. Commander Lim Bo-young, now head of the new Asymmetric Warfare Division, stood to deliver the final explanation. The Zephyrians asked us how we defeated their perfect system, she said. The answer is simple. We didn't defeat it. We let it defeat itself. Perfect systems destroy themselves when they encounter true chaos. We just gave them the opportunity. The vote that followed was unlike anything in coalition history. Not only did it pass unanimously, but Earth was granted something no new member had ever received: permanent seats on both the Military Strategic Council and the Defense Innovation Board. As the ceremony ended and the various alien delegates began filing out of the chamber, Lieutenant Commander Yoon Tae-hyun turned to Captain Park Jaemin with a thoughtful expression. You know what's funny? He said. We spent our whole history dreaming about the day we would meet aliens and join a galactic civilization. And we never imagined we'd be joining as the ones who saved it. The official records would show that the Zephyrian War lasted 203 years, 4 months, and 12 days, ending with human intervention that took exactly 2 hours and 47 minutes. But the real victory wasn't measured in time. It was measured in ideas, the idea that sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem is to stop thinking about it the way everyone else has been thinking about it. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, not as students, but as teachers.